Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 8. This will be the itchy episode. I'm going to be doing some fiberglassing, so it could get a little bit itchy. But I'm going to show you a few things quickly before we start doing any wetting out of the cloth. But I have the cloth. It's 12. This is 12-ounce biaxial. This cloth, the fibers run 45 degrees to the center line or the axial direction of the cloth. It's great cloth for doing that because of the 45-degree angles here. It drapes over these radiuses like on the chine here very easily, and it also adds quite a bit of strength. Because the fibers go this way, they're going this way, instead of just coming over. If it was just going over this way, you'd only have the strength of the fibers coming this way. If it was going like straight down, it wouldn't. So coming across, the fibers give it good strength in two different directions. Drapes easier. This is overlapping the chine by about 3 inches. Same thing on the keel. It overlaps about 3 inches on this side and about 3 inches on this side. There's two sections of cloth here. The blue masking tape is just to hold this cloth in place so it doesn't slide off the hull. And I draped everything one continuous length over the front here onto the bow. And I'm going to have a seam right here, but it overlaps by about a 1/2 inch, and when the epoxy sets up, I'll just sand that down. And then I wrapped it around the corner of the bow to the side here, about 3 inches, and the same thing on this side. It's overlapping about 3 inches. And I'll be mixing up the epoxy real soon. I did sand underneath this before I put it down. Maybe you can see a little evidence of, well, it's hard to see it. I gave it a light sanding with about 100 grit paper, and that's just so that the cloth could get a little bit more of a hold on the hull. And I didn't take any epoxy off. That's why I did an extra light coating when I was done fairing the boat, just to make sure everything had a coating of epoxy so it wouldn't be going on dry. And if you did that, what could happen is it would be the wood would, if it didn't have a coat of epoxy, you could suck a little of the resin out of the cloth, and then you'd have dry spots in the cloth, and that's not good. But anyways, I'm getting some of my supplies ready. I got this cool little wheel here. It's a 45 millimeter razor, and that's how I get this. I go right along here where I know where I want my cloth to end, and it digs slightly into the wood a little bit, but it gives me a nice clean cut. Sometimes I got to go along it with some scissors, and you might get a few little strands like this, and I just clip them with the scissors as I'm going along taking it off. And I got some 32-ounce mixing cups, a couple 6-inch spreaders, my gloves. There's some 2-inch chip brushes up there that I'm going to have to use probably on the side here, like dabbing some epoxy on, because I don't want it all running down the side of the hull. And of course I got my White Ball X50 cloth, so if I do drip some down here, I can wipe it up just so it doesn't set up and I gotta sand it down too aggressively. But I'll be back in a little bit here. I just want to get a few extra things ready, get some epoxy mixed up, and I'll get the camera set up. I'll try and get up as close as I can so you can see how I do this. I'd recommend wearing some old clothes that you don't care about getting some epoxy on, because as careful as you're probably going to be, you'll end up getting some epoxy, probably down under your armpits or something from leaning over, or And I usually have, it sounds crazy, but I use, sometimes I'll use like a pair of new socks, and I cut the toe section out, and I cut a hole through the thumb on it, and I stick my hands through it, and then I put my gloves over it. And because after wearing those gloves for a while, your hands tend to get a little bit sweaty, and the sock actually catches the sweat as opposed to dripping onto the cloth, and works pretty good for me. I don't have any right now, but I got my long sleeve sweatshirt on, so that will catch any sweat that might be coming out of the gloves. But anyways, I'll be back in a minute. I'm gonna start mixing up some epoxy, and I'll get this camera set up on the opposite side of where I'll be starting from, just so you can try and get about as close up as I can possibly get it. So I'll be back. Okay, so I'm pretty much ready to go here. I just mixed up about 24 ounces of epoxy. I'm using the Total Boat epoxy. Before I get any further, I'd like to mention that I did get the fiberglass cloth from Merton's Fiberglass Supply, and that's in Springfield, Massachusetts. Joe Merton runs the business, he owns it. He gave me a good price on the cloth. He cuts it to the length I want, and one thing he does for me, he rolls it as opposed to folding it. I hate when I get cloth and it's been folded and shipped to me, because I feel as though I have a little bit of a harder time getting the creases from the folds out. But anyways, that's where I got it, and all the other products I mentioned, other than these gloves, were I have a list going on under my description, and everything that I showed you was available there other than these gloves. And speaking of these gloves, I had to run in the house, and I ended up, while I was in there, I grabbed a pair of socks, and I did what I said I usually do, is I cut the toes off, and I cut out a notch in it so I could get my hand in it and put my thumb through. And then I put my gloves here over it, and what it does is when your hands start getting sweaty, none of it comes out at all, absorbs into the socks. So, but anyways, we'll get started here. The epoxy is mixed. I don't want to sit here chit-chatting and having it set up in the mixing cup. But I have my 6-inch spreader here, and I folded the cloth back a little bit, that side's, so I could get it on this section here, so that it doesn't come out dry. But here's how I usually like to start. I just take this and I dump it out. I don't want to get too close to the edge, because if I'm not paying attention, it'll come running down on my legs. And then I use my spreader here. I try to hold it almost down flat, so that it pushes the resin into the to the cloth. Now I'm not gonna put a lot of pressure yet, because I just want to get some of this spread around. I'm not going to put too hard a pressure, because I want to get some of the resin onto the cloth, and then I'll put a little pressure now to work it in after I get it spread around some. And sometimes it takes a little while for it to work its way into the cloth and to wet out. It'd probably be easier and wet out a lot easier and quicker if I put epoxy down before I put the cloth on. But with the length of this cloth, I would probably almost guarantee you I'd never be able to roll it out without it kinking somewhere, and I'd end up being frustrated. And so I choose to do it this way, and just to kind of be on the safe side. And I got my brush there in case I have to. I don't want to put too much up here and have it start running down the other side of the hull on me. So I might dab that a little bit with the brush. You can see that spot there is pretty dry. I need some more epoxy right here. And that's 24 ounces, so we'll see how far I get with that. There we go, it's starting to get wet now on the seam here where it overlaps. It'll take a few minutes for it to actually sink in, and what I'm doing, I was just getting a little bit on the ends of my spreader, and I'm putting it right up on the edge of the cloth that's overlapping to the other side of the hull, or to the other side, overlapping over the center line of the keel. Now that it's starting to wet out the cloth a little bit, you can kind of hear where the air gets into it. We'll work the air out with the spreader. And one thing you don't want to do, I like to just put enough resin on just to wet the cloth. You don't want to get a puddle on it because it will make it hard to sand it down, and especially with the cloth on it, it's even, epoxy's tough enough to sand as it is, but once you get the cloth in it, it's even tougher again. And whoops, I'm not paying attention. It's about to drip down. A little bit went over the edge, and I'm using my spreader almost like a plow and redirecting it if there's excess somewhere else towards where I want it. You hear a noise, that's my heater up there, and I got to keep that going so this stuff cures right. I think this requires at least 50 degrees, I think, to cure. I usually keep the shop about 55 to 60, so. Just drag the extra around the corner here, and I'll be pulling off the tape as I go along. Time for me to start using the brush now to dab it in a few spots to. You hear the air coming out, the popping sounds. I'm not sure if you can probably see it in the camera, the green right there. It's, you know, this gets a little transparent, but not like a 10-ounce e-glass. It'd show right through this. If you do it right, it'll look like there's no glass even on it. This biaxial's not really for transparency. Actually, it's not for transparency. This is more of a structural. Okay, I don't think I want to work this any more than what it is. That's pretty good. Just a little extra resin right here. I'm gonna go that way with it. Okay, so I'm back again. I have another 24 ounces of epoxy mixed up here. So we'll do the same thing all over again. Okay. Well, I'm back again. 5.5 hours later. I just finished getting the other side fiberglassed. Took a little longer than I thought, an hour and a half longer, but that's okay. I'll go around. I'll show you. I'll show you what I did here. You can see where it's overlapped in the middle here, going down the keel. I got a little seam up the front here. This overlaps about a 1/2 inch, and the front bow section wraps around the corner here, and then I got a few little runs along here. I got some of the stitches from the fabric that holds it together sticking down. You can see maybe right here. See those? That's already set up. It's one of the first ones I did, but they're not on there too tight. I can just sand those down, but I'm happy with the way it came out. There's no big puddling anywhere or anything like that. You can see, you know, the fairing compound coming through, so it's wet out pretty good. And that's the transom right here. You can see where I have it overlapped, and that's the keel looking down from the transom going forward. And now I'm on the other side of the boat. You can see the same thing. I have some of the threads that hold the fabric together from cutting it. They're hanging down, but I'll be able to just sand those off. I was hoping I could just snip them, but it's already starting to set up, so. But anyways, that's where it's at. So I'll have to sand this down when it's all fully cured, right along these edges. I'll sand the whole thing, and I'll sand these the seams down, and this is like double overlapped right here already. And then I'll just sand it down. I'm going to have to, because when I go to drape the fiberglass from the side coming up and over, if there's any little sharp edges, it snags on it, and if you try to pull it, it ruins the weave. But that's about it for tonight. It's a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take, but that's okay. I'll get it there. Well, here I am again. I just finished sanding the first layer of the 12-ounce biaxial fiberglass that's on the bottom. I feathered in the edges. I'll go around, I'll show it to everything that I did. As you can see, it's getting a little bit of that chalky white color again. You can see this is where one seam was, the end of the cloth where it overlaps. This is the other side. This side here doesn't make as much of a ridge because it was done wet on wet. I put this side on first, then I came up back and I did this side, pushed it back over, so this was still a little bit wet here. So it almost blends itself in when you do it that way. You might be able to see the difference here where this one I feathered it and tapered it in a little bit better. And I just ran the fiberglass cloth, I'm sorry, a 40 grit disc on my sander over this, just to get any little high spots out of it that might have been in it. You can see right here, that's where I feathered it in. That's where the cloth ended, where I cut it. And I cleaned up, I don't know if you remember, I showed you all the little pieces of threads that hold the cloth, the fibers in position were coming down like on this, and I scraped those off. I got this little carbide scraper here that I like to use. It's got a carbide scraper in it here. When it wears out, you can just undo the screw a little, you can flip it around, so there's actually 3 blades in here, and it works great. It lasts a long time too. I actually run it right along the seam here too, scraping it before I sand it, because it takes it down actually quite a bit quicker than the sandpaper does. But that's it, you know. It's this is the back right here. Got everything anywhere where this cloth comes down, I feather it into this so that the next layer can smoothly come up and over it. Then in the end, I'll end up having to fair it all along there. And there's a few spots like right here. I mixed up just a little bit of fairing compound and put it in. I had a couple little holes where you fold in the cloth over where the 2 pieces didn't quite meet, so I put in, and it stretched the fabric a little, so I just wanted to fill it in right there. And I had to do the same thing up on the front. I was pulling the cloth over, and I stretched it just a little bit. You can see right here some of the fibers they slightly separated, and then the very front here is actually where there's already 2 layers here, because this comes up, this one comes over this way, then I folded it down, that one goes over this way, folded it down. So, and there was like a little hole right here where the 2 pieces of cloth didn't sit right, and I sanded it, so I just put a little fairing compound there so that the next layer going over it won't have a problem or make any porous voids in it or anything like that. And I did a little bit down here too. I just added a little fairing compound in the weave of the cloth right there. And you don't want to add too much of the fairing compound, because it's not a structural type thing, it's more cosmetic. so you don't want to put too much and cause it to be weak. But this is it's very strong already, just adding that one layer. But I'm going to do 2 on the bottom and at least 1 on the side. And but this is this side right here. Here's my paper. I ended up taking probably about three discs of the 40 grit to do each side of the hull. Maybe a little bit more, because the fiberglass and the resin actually wears that cloth down pretty quickly. And that's one more spot where I put just a tiny bit of fairing compound just to fill in a little hole there that I just want to make sure that it has something in it, instead of making a little air bubble there because it didn't fill in with resin when I put the second layer on. But a lot of hours into putting this on here. There's probably, between sanding it down and doing this layer just on the bottom, I think I have about 7 hours on it. I was hoping to make episode 8 where I could do both the side and the bottom, but it'll just be too long of a video. I'm trying to cut my video lengths down. I like to get them down to 30 minutes. They seem to be around an hour. I think that's a little too long, and it's probably because of what I'm doing now. I just keep talking. So I'm going to make this episode 8, the end of episode 8, and episode 9 I will film the fiberglass going up over the sides. And I do it a little different because it's on a vertical surface, or almost vertical. There's a little bit of a rake to the side here, but it's not as easy to just dump the resin out on a horizontal surface and spread it around. You got to be a little bit more careful and a bit quicker, so that it doesn't run off the sides, and you look down, the next thing your shoes are filling up with epoxy. So anyways, this will be the end of episode 8. I appreciate you watching. Like I always say, comment, give me some ideas if you have it, spread the link around, subscribe, and just keep watching. And I'll see you at episode 9 when we're doing the sides with fiberglass. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.